98% of you are not subscribed. Enter and subscribe because at the amount of 1,000 subscribers, I will post a very special video for you. In the cold expanse of space, the stars blinked indifferently at the dramas unfolding under their watch. On the frontier planet of Veridia, a speck in the sprawling galaxy, a peculiar night was about to unfold, one that would mark the beginning of an extraordinary series of events. Marisol had always felt a connection to the stars. As a child, she would gaze up at the night sky from the observatory of her small town, dreaming of the mysteries held in the infinite depths of space. Now, as a seasoned exoplanetary geologist, her job brought her face to face with those childhood dreams, though under circumstances she could never have imagined. The day had begun like any other, with Marisol heading out to the rugged terrain of Veridia's northern hemisphere to collect samples. The planet was rich in unique minerals, and there were rumors of a substance beyond the known periodic table, something that was said to be the key to revolutionary energy sources. As she ventured deeper into a previously unexplored valley, the ground trembled slightly under her feet, an occurrence not uncommon on this geologically active planet. But the intensity increased suddenly, and before she could react, the earth split open, throwing her to the ground. Dazed, she looked around, only to see the landscape transforming as several massive metallic structures emerged from beneath the surface. Marisol scrambled to her feet, her heart pounding as she took in the sight of these alien constructs, their surfaces gleaming eerily in the planet's twin sunsets. It was then that she noticed them, beings unlike any she had seen in all her travels across the cosmos. They were tall, with elongated limbs and a translucent quality to their skin that made them almost ghost-like. Their eyes, large and unblinking, focused intently on her. Without warning, two of the creatures advanced towards her. Panic set in as she turned to run, but it was too late. A sharp, searing pain shot through her body as she felt herself being lifted off the ground by an unseen force. The last thing she saw before her vision blurred was the stars, twinkling mockingly above her. Marisol awoke to find herself in a dimly lit room, the walls pulsating with a soft light that seemed to breathe. She was restrained on what could only be described as an operating table, her limbs held by bands of a smooth, cold material. The air was thick with a strange, sweet scent, and the silence was punctuated by the soft hum of alien machinery. One of the creatures approached, its movements graceful yet unnerving. It spoke, and to Marisol's surprise, the words materialized in her mind, clear and unambiguous. "We regret the necessity of this human. You are intruding on the custodian's domain." The alien communicated telepathically. Marisol's mind raced as she absorbed the implications. The custodians. She had heard legends of an ancient race, believed to protect certain secrets of the universe, deemed too powerful or dangerous for less advanced species. "What do you want from me?" Marisol thought, her fear mixing with a scientist's curiosity. "We seek to understand your kind's resilience and adaptability," the being replied, its large eyes scrutinizing her. "Your species has a peculiar tenacity, a will to survive that is rare." As the alien's appendages hovered over her, instruments in hand, Marisol realized the gravity of her situation. She was alone, at the mercy of these beings, far from any help. Her only hope was to endure and perhaps understand more of what was happening to her, and why. The alien began its examination, and Marisol steeled herself against the discomfort, her mind whirling with questions. Why her? What had they found on this planet? And most importantly, how could she possibly escape? As the first chapter of her ordeal unfolded, the stakes were clear. Marisol was to navigate this alien trap, enduring whatever came her way while seeking any opportunity for escape. Her journey, fraught with danger and mystery, was just beginning. In the bowels of the alien structure, the examination continued with unnerving precision. The custodians, as they had identified themselves, employed devices that Marisol had never seen or imagined. These tools seemed to manipulate both light and sound, scanning her body without contact, resonating with a frequency that made her very bones hum. One particular instrument, a slender rod tipped with a shimmering orb, passed repeatedly over her. It emitted a soft, pulsating glow, bathing her in a light that seemed to penetrate deep into her core. The sensation was unsettling yet strangely soothing, and Marisol felt her resistance waning as her body succumbed to an enforced relaxation. "This procedure maps your physiological and psychological essence," the custodian explained, noting her discomfort. "Fear not, human. This is not harm. This is understanding." As the alien spoke, images and thoughts that were not her own flickered through Marisol's mind. Visions of distant worlds, cosmic storms, and peaceful civilizations. It was as if the custodian was sharing snippets of its own memories or experiences, perhaps as a way to communicate, or maybe to distract her from the procedure. The room, which initially seemed to have no boundaries, now appeared more defined, focusing on the area around her. The walls pulsed rhythmically, almost in sync with the custodian's movements. Marisol wondered if the entire chamber was alive, some bioengineered construct designed to adapt to the needs of its occupants. Suddenly the examination shifted. The instruments withdrew, and the atmosphere tensed. Another custodian entered the room, this one markedly different in its demeanor. It was larger, its skin a deeper shade of iridescent blue, and its eyes darker, almost entirely black. "This one is known as the Arbiter," her initial captor conveyed. "It judges suitability." Marisol felt a new wave of fear as the Arbiter approached. It extended a hand, and from its palm a small, intricate device emerged, floating towards her. This device, unlike the others, attached itself to her temple, sending a sharp jolt through her nervous system. Memories began to flood her mind, unbidden. Her childhood, her family, her first journey into space, and her arrival on Veridia. It was as if the device was rifling through her life, searching for something specific, something crucial. "You carry a rare gene not found in many of your kind." The Arbiter spoke directly into her mind, its voice deeper and more resonant than the other custodians. "This makes you uniquely adaptable to the extremities of space." "Why does that matter to you?" Marisol thought back, trying to mask her pain and confusion with defiance. "The universe is vast, and survival is an art known by few. Your species is young yet promising, but it is untested," the Arbiter replied. Its gaze was piercing, as if it could see into the very depths of her soul. "We test potential. We safeguard against chaos." As the examination concluded, the device detached from her temple, leaving a lingering ache. The Arbiter stepped back, its expression unreadable. The room's light dimmed momentarily, and when it returned, Marisol found herself alone, the restraints on the table loosening. She sat up, her head spinning with the influx of returned memories and the revelations of the custodians. She was not merely a prisoner. She was a subject in a cosmic test, judged for her species' potential in the grand schema of the universe. Now, with the examination complete, Marisol knew she had to find a way to escape. Not just for her own survival, but to warn Earth of these custodians and their mysterious agenda. Her journey through the alien structure had just begun, and she would need all her wits and courage to navigate the challenges ahead. As she stepped off the table, her resolve hardened. The trap was set, and she was the bait, but Marisol was determined not to be an easy catch. Marisol's legs were unsteady as she slid off the examination table, the after effects of the probing instruments still coursing through her body. The chamber she was in felt alive, almost aware, its walls pulsating gently with a rhythmic glow that seemed to mimic a heartbeat. She knew she had to move, to find a way out. But the direction was unclear in this alien construct that felt more like an organism than a facility. She ventured towards what appeared to be an opening, the membrane-like door retracting as she approached, revealing a long, dimly lit corridor. The hall stretched on, lined with doors that pulsed with the same bioluminescent light as the walls in her previous room. Marisol's scientific mind buzzed with questions about the technology and biology fused around her. But her immediate need to escape pushed these thoughts aside. As she moved stealthily down the corridor, Marisol's ears picked up a distant hum, a sound that was neither mechanical nor organic, but something in between. She followed it, hoping it might lead her to an exit, or at least away from the central areas where the custodians might frequent. The corridor branched off in several directions, turning the structure into a labyrinthine puzzle. At each junction, Marisol paused, listening for any sign of movement or life. It was eerily silent, as if the facility was holding its breath. Choosing paths that seemed to ascend or lead outward, she tried to create a mental map of her route, though the uniformity of the surroundings made it difficult. Suddenly, the corridor opened into a vast chamber, filled with what looked like stasis pods. Each pod held a different creature, some humanoid, others distinctly alien. Marisol realized with a jolt that she was in some kind of preservation or experimentation room. Each pod was connected to the central system by a network of tendrils that pulsed with energy. In the center of the room stood a console, aglow with alien script and diagrams. Curiosity overcoming caution, Marisol approached it, her fingers hovering over the controls. She touched one, and the screen shifted, displaying a star map of unfamiliar constellations and systems. This must be their navigation database, Marisol muttered to herself, a plan forming. If she could download this data, it could be invaluable to Earth's defenses or negotiations with these custodians. As she interfaced her portable data unit with the console, the room shuddered slightly. A soft, almost plaintive wail echoed through the chamber, and the pods began to glow more intensely. Marisol ripped the data unit away, stashing it safely. Her actions had not gone unnoticed. The hum from before grew louder, and now footsteps, or what she assumed could be footsteps, approached. She ducked behind a nearby pod, her breath shallow. 2 custodians entered the room, their bodies casting long, eerie shadows. They spoke in their cryptic, melodious language, the sounds vibrating through the air. Marisol didn't need to understand the words to know they were alerted to an anomaly, perhaps the data breach, or maybe just her presence. She waited, heart pounding, as they inspected the console but eventually moved away, their interest seemingly satisfied. Once the coast was clear, Marisol continued through another passage, the sense of urgency growing. The facility was vast, and every turn and corridor seemed to pull her deeper into its secrets. But with each step, she grew more determined to find a way out and bring back help. Her capture, while harrowing, had revealed the potential threat these custodians posed, and she could not let that knowledge go to waste. Navigating the labyrinth became a game of memory and instinct, as Marisol retraced her steps and chose new paths based on the layout she was slowly learning. Up ahead, a faint light suggested an exit, or at least a way to another sector. As she moved towards it, her resolve hardened. She was no longer just an explorer or a scientist. She was a survivor in a cosmic game, and she intended to play it to the end. The faint light that Marisol had noticed grew brighter as she approached, casting a soft golden hue over the corridor. It was different from the pulsating blues and greens of the rest of the facility, and she hoped it indicated an exterior exit. Her body ached from the relentless tension and cautious movements, but the possibility of escape reinvigorated her spirit. As she reached the source of the light, Marisol discovered a large viewport, offering a panoramic view of the alien landscape outside. The planet's surface stretched out before her, a surreal vista of towering crystal formations and undulating dunes that shimmered under the light of the planet's twin stars. It was breathtaking and alien, yet starkly beautiful. For a moment, her worries faded as she absorbed the sight, reminded of why she had become an exoplanetary geologist in the first place. Turning from the window, she noticed that the corridor branched into a complex network of pathways leading to various sectors of the facility. Among them, one path was marked by symbols that resembled the alien script associated with transportation or transit. Deciding to follow these markings, Marisol navigated through increasingly utilitarian and less ornate sections of the structure, indicating she was likely moving towards a service or control area. Her guess was correct. The corridor ended at a large bay filled with various types of spacecraft, from small scout vessels to larger, more elaborate ships that looked capable of deep space travel. Her heart leapt at the sight. It was a way out, not just of the facility but potentially back to Earth, or at least to where she could alert her people. But as she stepped closer to inspect the ships, the sound of a familiar hum froze her in her tracks. The custodians were here, not just one this time, but several, engaged in what looked like a heated discussion. Marisol ducked behind a stack of supply crates, her earlier encounter reminding her of the need for stealth. Peering out, she caught snippets of their conversation, now understanding bits and pieces thanks to the unintentional mental downloads during her examination. "We must advance the timeline," one custodian argued, its voice a mixture of urgency and frustration. "The human has accessed forbidden sectors. She knows too much." Another responded more calmly. "It is the Arbiter's will that we observe and not hasten. We risk exposing ourselves prematurely." Marisol's mind raced. They were speaking about her, and their words hinted at something bigger. A plan or a mission involving her planet. She needed more information, but she also needed to act fast. The debate among the custodians provided her with just enough distraction to slip unnoticed towards the smallest of the ships. As she entered the cockpit, Marisol was relieved to find the controls somewhat intuitive, likely due to the custodian's design catering to multiple species. She powered up the engines, the ship's systems coming to life with a series of soft beeps and whirls. Just as she was about to disengage the docking clamps, a message flashed on the screen in front of her, translating automatically to her language. "Warning, unauthorized launch detected. Security protocol initiated." The ship was locked down, trapping her inside. Marisol's heart sank as she heard the approaching footsteps of the custodians. However, before despair could fully take hold, another part of the ship's system activated, a communication channel opening a direct line to someone or something that had been waiting for her call. "Human Marisol," a new unknown voice spoke through the comm system. "Do not fear. We have observed your struggle. Help is coming." Confused yet hopeful, Marisol responded, "Who are you?" "We are the others," the voice replied, shrouded in mystery. "Allies of those who seek freedom from the custodians' tests. We have a plan to escape." As the door to the cockpit began to open, Marisol braced herself, not knowing what to expect next. But she knew one thing for sure. Her journey was far from over, and her role in this interstellar intrigue was more significant than she had ever imagined. The faint light that Marisol had noticed grew brighter as she approached, casting a soft golden hue over the corridor. It was different from the pulsating blues and greens of the rest of the facility, and she hoped it indicated an exterior exit. Her body ached from the relentless tension and cautious movements, but the possibility of escape reinvigorated her spirit. As she reached the source of the light, Marisol discovered a large viewport, offering a panoramic view of the alien landscape outside. The planet's surface stretched out before her, a surreal vista of towering crystal formations and undulating dunes that shimmered under the light of the planet's twin stars. It was breathtaking and alien, yet starkly beautiful. For a moment, her worries faded as she absorbed the sight, reminded of why she had become an exoplanetary geologist in the first place. Turning from the window, she noticed that the corridor branched into a complex network of pathways leading to various sectors of the facility. Among them, one path was marked by symbols that resembled the alien script associated with transportation or transit. Deciding to follow these markings, Marisol navigated through increasingly utilitarian and less ornate sections of the structure, indicating she was likely moving towards a service or control area. Her guess was correct. The corridor ended at a large bay filled with various types of spacecraft, from small scout vessels to larger, more elaborate ships that looked capable of deep space travel. Her heart leapt at the sight. It was a way out, not just of the facility, but potentially back to Earth, or at least to where she could alert her people. But as she stepped closer to inspect the ships, the sound of a familiar hum froze her in her tracks. The custodians were here, not just one this time, but several, engaged in what looked like a heated discussion. Marisol ducked behind a stack of supply crates, her earlier encounter reminding her of the need for stealth. Peering out, she caught snippets of their conversation, now understanding bits and pieces thanks to the unintentional mental downloads during her examination. "We must advance the timeline," one custodian argued, its voice a mixture of urgency and frustration. "The human has accessed forbidden sectors. She knows too much." Another responded more calmly. "It is the Arbiter's will that we observe and not hasten. We risk exposing ourselves prematurely. Marisol's mind raced. They were speaking about her, and their words hinted at something bigger. A plan or a mission involving her planet. She needed more information, but she also needed to act fast. The debate among the custodians provided her with just enough distraction to slip unnoticed towards the smallest of the ships. As she entered the cockpit, Marisol was relieved to find the controls somewhat intuitive, likely due to the custodian's design catering to multiple species. She powered up the engines, the ship's systems coming to life with a series of soft beeps and whirls. Just as she was about to disengage the docking clamps, a message flashed on the screen in front of her, translating automatically to her language. Warning, unauthorized launch detected, security protocol initiated. The ship was locked down, trapping her inside. Marisol's heart sank as she heard the approaching footsteps of the custodians. However, before despair could fully take hold, another part of the ship's system activated, a communication channel opening a direct line to someone or something that had been waiting for her call. Human Marisol, a new unknown voice spoke through the comm system. Do not fear. We have observed your struggle. Help is coming. Confused yet hopeful, Marisol responded. Who are you? We are the others, the voice replied, shrouded in mystery. Allies of those who seek freedom from the custodians' tests. We have a plan to escape. As the door to the cockpit began to open, Marisol braced herself, not knowing what to expect next. But she knew one thing for sure. Her journey was far from over, and her role in this interstellar intrigue was more significant than she had ever imagined. The cockpit door slid open and Marisol tensed, ready for confrontation. Instead of the anticipated custodians, a figure stepped through the threshold, one markedly different from her captors. This new alien was smaller, with a rough, textured skin that shifted colors subtly, reflecting its surroundings. It moved with a deliberate, quiet grace, its eyes bright and intelligent, focusing immediately on Marisol. Marisol, I am called Sil. We don't have much time. The alien introduced itself quickly, its voice a whisper. The custodians will soon override this ship's lockdown. We need to leave now. Marisol, still reeling from the rapid shift in her situation, nodded and moved aside as Sil approached the ship's control panel. With deft movements, the alien began reconfiguring the settings, bypassing the lockdown with an expertise that spoke of deep familiarity with the technology. Who are you people exactly? Marisol asked, her curiosity piqued despite the urgency of their escape. We are the Silenced, Sil explained, not taking its eyes off the control panel. We once served the custodians, like many others, until we saw the truth behind their tests and examinations. They seek to control and manipulate, not to understand or coexist. We resist and help others do the same. The ship shuddered slightly as the docking clamps released, a smooth hum filling the space as the engines came fully online. Sil handed Marisol a small device. This will help mask our departure. Keep it close. As Sil piloted the ship out of the bay, Marisol looked back at the shrinking figure of the alien facility. She thought of the other beings still trapped and experimented on, her resolve hardening. What now? How do we stop them? Sil glanced at her, its features softening. First we survive, then we gather others like us. The custodians have many enemies, and many who fear them. You are not alone in this fight. The spacecraft slipped away from the planet, camouflaged by the device Sil had given Marisol. As they entered the relative safety of space, Sil plotted a course to what appeared as an unremarkable sector of space. However, Marisol suspected it was anything but ordinary. This is a meeting point for the Silenced, Sil continued. From there, we strategize, we plan, and when ready, we act. You will meet others who have suffered at the hands of the custodians, but have also escaped. Together, there is hope. As the stars blurred into the streaks of hyperspace travel, Marisol processed her whirlwind of experiences. She went from being a captive, a subject of cruel tests, to an escapee allied with a rebel group. Each revelation expanded her understanding of the galaxy's complexities and dangers. Arriving at the rendezvous, the space around them was filled with a variety of ships, each different in design but similar in their makeshift modifications and stealth capabilities. Aliens of all forms mingled, united by their shared purpose. Syl led Marisol through the crowd, introducing her to key figures in their resistance. Each story echoed themes of loss and defiance, of battles fought and sacrifices made. Marisol listened, learned, and shared her own tale, finding her place among these unlikely allies. The gathering was not just a strategic meeting, it was a consolidation of hope against a common enemy. Plans were drawn, roles assigned, and resources pooled. Marisol found herself appointed as a liaison for Earth, a role she accepted with a mix of pride and gravity. As the meeting adjourned, Marisol stood beside Syl, looking out at the gathered fleet, a motley crew bound by a shared vision. "We have a chance," she said, more to herself than to Syl. "Yes," Syl replied, its voice steady and sure. "Together, we have a chance." Marisol's journey had catapulted her from the solitude of captivity to the heart of a burgeoning rebellion. With each passing moment, she grew more integrated into their plans, her skills and knowledge vital to their cause. The fight was just beginning, and Marisol was ready. She had found her purpose among the stars, not just as a scientist, but as a warrior for freedom. Under the dim glow of the command center's holographic displays, Marisol reviewed the mission plans with her team. Her role had evolved significantly. She was now not only an expert in extraterrestrial geology, but also a tactical leader in the Coalition of the Unwilling. The upcoming operation, dubbed First Strike, was a bold initiative to dismantle a major custodian command hub. Success here could shift the balance of power and give the Coalition a significant advantage. "Remember, this hub controls a fleet of surveillance drones that monitor half the quadrant," Marisol briefed her diverse team, each member from a different corner of the galaxy. "Taking it down will blind the custodians in this sector and free up movement for millions." The team nodded, their expressions a mix of determination and the weight of responsibility. They were an eclectic crew. There was Tharn, a burly and bristly Krantharian who specialized in heavy weaponry. Liss, a nimble, shadow-like figure adept in stealth and infiltration. And Joro, a brilliant tech specialist from a cybernetic species known for their mental computing capabilities. The plan was complex, involving simultaneous cyber attacks to disable the hub's defenses and a physical assault to secure the facility. Marisol's team was responsible for the latter, using a covert approach to infiltrate the hub located on a desolate moon orbiting a gas giant. As their stealth ship approached the target, cloaked by the latest in adaptive camouflage technology, Marisol went over the final details. "Liss, you'll disable the external sensors. Joro, you're unhacking the security network as soon as we're inside. Tharn, you and I will handle any physical opposition." Liss, ever the silent type, merely nodded, her form almost blending into the shadows of the ship's interior. Joro, whose body was augmented with various data ports, was already interfacing with their onboard systems to prepare for the digital onslaught. Tharn, checking his gear, grunted his readiness, a typical show of enthusiasm from the warrior. The ship landed quietly in the shadow of a crater rim, just outside the sensor range. The moon's surface was barren, covered in dust and rocky debris, with the custodian hub looming like a fortress of metal and pulsating energy not far from their position. Marisol led her team through the desolate landscape, their suits shielding them from the moon's harsh environment. Reaching the perimeter of the hub, Liss quickly and quietly disabled the sensors, her hands moving with a precision that made her seem more like a specter than a solid being. With the external defenses down, Joro connected to the facility's network. "I'm in!" Joro's voice buzzed through their comms. "You have 10 minutes before they reroute the intrusion detection systems." Time was of the essence. Marisol and Tharn advanced into the facility, encountering minimal resistance thanks to Joro's disruptions. They moved through corridors of steel and light, the architecture alien yet strangely familiar. Reaching the central control room, they found it guarded by several custodian drones, sleek, deadly machines capable of lethal force. Tharn stepped forward, his heavy weapons disrupting the drone's advanced AI with powerful electromagnetic pulses, while Marisol used her agility to disable them physically. With the drones incapacitated, Joro's voice came through again. "Control systems are down. I'm starting the data extraction." Marisol secured the control room, setting up explosives to cover their retreat. "Let's move out. We have what we came for." The team retraced their steps, leaving the facility just as the explosives detonated, sending shockwaves that rippled through the moon's surface. Back aboard their ship, they watched as the hub's lights flickered and died, a symbol of their victory. As they set course back to the asteroid base, Marisol felt a mixture of triumph and the heavy burden of the war they were engaged in. This strike was just the beginning. The road ahead was long and fraught with danger, but for the first time, the Coalition had struck a significant blow against the custodians, fueling hope among the oppressed systems. "Good work, team," Marisol said, her voice steady, but her eyes reflecting the stars' glow outside, symbols of the light they were fighting to bring back to the galaxy. As the stealth ship cruised back to the asteroid base, the recent victory at the Custodian Command Hub weighed on Marisol's mind. The operation had been a success, technically speaking, but the ease of their triumph left her uneasy. The Custodians were known for their meticulousness and ruthlessness. That they had allowed such a breach suggested either an underestimation of the Coalition's capabilities or a more troubling possibility, a trap. Back at the command center, Marisol's concerns only deepened. The data extracted from the hub revealed vast networks of custodian operations, far more extensive and interconnected than the Coalition had anticipated. Among these revelations was evidence of a possible superweapon capable of manipulating gravitational fields, a technology that could threaten entire star systems. "The implications are dire," Joro commented, analyzing the schematics they had retrieved. "If they complete this weapon, they won't just be monitoring but could outright control or destroy planets." Marisol convened a strategy meeting with the Coalition's leaders, including Syl, who had been her guide and mentor since her arrival. The group gathered around a holotable, displaying star maps and projections of custodian movements. "We need to act," Marisol asserted, pointing to the data. "If we disrupt their progress on this weapon, we can prevent them from gaining an insurmountable advantage." The leaders murmured in agreement, but it was Syl who voiced the concern echoing in Marisol's own thoughts. "This data was too accessible. It's unlike the custodians to leave such valuable information unguarded unless it serves their purpose." A tense silence filled the room. Paranoia was a constant companion in their struggle against a vastly superior enemy, and Syl's words struck at the heart of their fears. Could their recent victory have been a setup, designed to lure them deeper into a strategic blunder? "We should consider the possibility that we are being manipulated into a specific course of action," Marisol suggested. "But we also can't afford to ignore the threat of this weapon. We need a two-pronged approach. Proceed with the mission to disrupt the weapon's development, but also strengthen our defenses and counterintelligence." The plan was set in motion. Marisol led a smaller, highly skilled team tasked with infiltrating a custodian facility where components of the superweapon were reportedly being assembled. Meanwhile, Syl and others would bolster their security protocols and scan for any signs of counterattacks or surveillance breaches. The mission to the facility was fraught with risk. Marisol's team, cloaked in the shadow of a comet's tail, approached the icy moon that housed the construction site. The landscape was desolate, a stark field of ice and rock beneath a pale violet sky. They landed without incident, but as they made their way to the facility, an unsettling quiet pervaded. The expected security patrols were nowhere to be seen, and the usual hum of energy that accompanied custodian installations was absent. Inside, the facility was dimly lit and seemingly abandoned. "Stay sharp," Marisol warned her team, her instincts on high alert. They pressed on, reaching the core where the weapon's components were supposed to be assembled. What they found instead was a holographic recording triggered as they entered the room. A figure materialized before them, a custodian, its form flickering with static. "Welcome, Coalition," it began, its tone mocking. "You have proven your capabilities, but you are predictable. Your efforts here are wasted." The message confirmed their worst fears. It was a trap, not designed to capture or kill, but to mislead and demoralize. Retreating hastily to their ship, Marisol felt a mix of anger and defiance. They had been played, but the fight was far from over. As they left the icy moon behind, her resolve hardened. The war with the custodians was evolving, and so too must their strategies. The shadows of doubt would not deter them, but would serve as a reminder of the cunning enemy they faced. Back at the base, the need for adaptability and vigilance was clearer than ever. The coalition had to be smarter, more unpredictable, and more unified than before. The stakes were high, but so was their resolve. The fight for freedom continued, now shadowed by the specter of the superweapon and the deceptive intelligence of their enemy. In the aftermath of the custodians' trap, the mood at the asteroid base was one of cautious introspection. Marisol spent long hours with coalition leaders, dissecting each step of their failed mission to understand and learn from their mistakes. They needed to adapt quickly, acknowledging that the custodians were not just powerful, but also astutely strategic. "We've been reactive for too long," Marisol stated during one of the strategy sessions. "It's time we take control of the narrative. We need our own network of intelligence, a way to gather accurate information without falling into another trap." Her proposal led to the creation of the Shadow Network, a covert team of operatives tasked with infiltrating custodian-controlled sectors to gather intelligence and conduct surveillance without engaging directly. Marisol, with her unique understanding of custodian technology gleaned from her captivity and subsequent encounters, was pivotal in training these operatives. As the Shadow Network commenced its operations, Marisol found herself increasingly tied to the command center, her role transitioning more towards strategy and oversight. This shift was challenging for her. The field had always been her domain, but she recognized the broader impact she could now make. Weeks passed, and the Shadow Network began to yield results. Reports flowed in, sketching a complex picture of custodian activities across several systems. One report in particular caught Marisol's attention. It hinted at a possible dissent within the custodian ranks, a faction that disagreed with their leadership's aggressive policies towards other species. "This could be a significant leverage point," Marisol mused, discussing the intelligence with Syl. "If there's a faction opposing the current regime, perhaps we can ally with them, or at least use their dissent to our advantage." Syl, ever cautious, agreed but warned, "We must approach this carefully. Dissent or not, they are still custodians. Their ultimate goals may not align with ours." Plans were drawn to contact this dissenting faction discreetly. Meanwhile, the base buzzed with preparations for a diplomatic mission to a neighboring alliance, seeking broader support against the custodians. Marisol was to lead this mission, her first return to field operations since the inception of the Shadow Network. The journey to the alliance was tense, with Marisol's ship navigating through sectors where custodian patrols were frequent. Using a combination of stealth technology and the latest intelligence from the Shadow Network, they managed to arrive unscathed. The Alliance Council welcomed her warmly, intrigued by the Coalition's resistance efforts and wary of the growing custodian threat. Marisol presented the case for a united front, detailing the strategic, technological, and moral implications of standing against the custodians. "The galaxy has reached a tipping point," Marisol addressed the council, her voice steady and persuasive. "Together we can tip it back towards freedom and away from the tyranny of the custodians." The negotiations extended over several days, with debates and discussions on the best ways to collaborate without provoking an all-out war. An agreement was slowly forged, a pact of mutual defense and intelligence sharing that would significantly bolster the Coalition's position. As Marisol prepared to return to the base, a coded message from the Shadow Network arrived. The dissenting custodian faction was willing to meet, but under strict conditions of secrecy and security. The meeting was set in a neutral location, one of the many abandoned outposts in the Dead Zone, a region known for its lack of strategic value and hence minimal custodian surveillance. With the new alliance's backing secured, and the prospect of understanding, or even exploiting, the custodians' internal conflicts, Marisol felt a surge of cautious optimism. The journey back to the base was filled with preparations, both for the diplomatic gains and the upcoming clandestine meeting. As the stars passed by, a web of espionage, diplomacy, and potential revolution was weaving together, driven by the Coalition's efforts and Marisol's leadership. The galaxy's future seemed to hang in the balance, with each move in this intricate dance critical to the outcome of their long struggle for freedom. Marisol's ship hovered silently in the shadow of a derelict space station in the Dead Zone, the meeting point for the clandestine talks with the dissenting custodian faction. The area was a graveyard of abandoned projects and failed colonies, a fitting backdrop for a discussion steeped in secrecy and distrust. Inside the station, the atmosphere was tense as Marisol and her selected team waited. The area had been swept multiple times for any signs of surveillance or traps. Every member of the team was acutely aware of the stakes. The potential for betrayal was high, but so was the opportunity for a significant strategic shift. The custodians arrived, their appearance causing a ripple of tension. They were similar in form to those Marisol had encountered before, but wore markings that subtly differentiated them. Their leader, who introduced himself as Verax, projected an aura of calm authority. "We come in the spirit of mutual benefit," Verax communicated, his thoughts resonating directly in Marisol's mind, bypassing the need for spoken language. "Our faction seeks to alter the path our leaders are taking us on, a path we believe will lead to unnecessary destruction and loss." Marisol listened intently, her skepticism tempered by the earnestness she perceived in Verax's mental voice. "And what do you seek from us?" she asked, knowing that alliances, especially ones forged under such circumstances, were never without a price. "Assurance of safety and a place in the new order once the current regime is dismantled," Verax replied. "In exchange, we offer intelligence and assistance in thwarting their plans, including disabling the superweapon you fear." The negotiations lasted for hours, with each side cautiously laying out their terms and conditions. Marisol felt the weight of each decision, aware that her choices could either pave the way for a significant victory or lead them into a deeper conflict. Finally, an agreement was reached. The dissenting custodians would provide detailed schematics of the superweapon and critical data on custodian troop movements and vulnerabilities. In return, the Coalition would support their bid for power when the time came, ensuring that the custodians who helped them would not be persecuted or excluded from governance. As the custodians left, Marisol and her team immediately began planning. The first step was to use the intelligence provided to launch a preemptive strike against the facility housing the superweapon, a daunting fortress orbiting a neutron star. The mission was set into motion with swift precision. Marisol, back in her element in the field, led an elite squad aboard a fast attack craft. They utilized the newly acquired custodian cloaking technology, slipping past enemy sensors and blockades. The assault on the superweapon facility was intense. Marisol's team fought their way through the station's defenses, encountering fierce resistance from custodian guards. The conflict was brutal, but the Coalition's forces, bolstered by the insider information and their advanced preparation, slowly gained the upper hand. After a fierce battle, they reached the core of the facility. Joro, ever the adept hacker, worked feverishly to disable the weapon, bypassing layer after layer of security protocols. Meanwhile, Marisol and the rest provided cover, holding back the reinforcements trying to reclaim the control room. With moments to spare, Joro succeeded. The weapon was disabled, its menacing hum silenced, and its threatening glow extinguished. Cheers broke out among the team, a brief but heartfelt celebration amidst the chaos. The victory was significant, but Marisol knew the war was far from over. They had dealt a critical blow to the custodians' plans, but the galaxy remained a place of conflict and uncertainty. The alliance with the dissenting custodians held for now, but the future was anything but certain. As they returned to their base, Marisol looked out into the vastness of space, her thoughts on the countless lives they were fighting to protect. The fracture within the custodian ranks had opened a new path to peace, but the road ahead was fraught with unknowns and dangers. Yet, for the first time in a long while, there was a glimmer of real hope, a chance not just for survival, but for a lasting peace. After the disabling of the superweapon, the news of the Coalition's victory rippled across the galaxy, igniting sparks of rebellion and hope in numerous systems. The strategic victory had not only prevented a catastrophic weapon from being deployed, but it also fractured the Custodians' perceived invincibility. Marisol stood on the deck of the Coalition's command ship, watching the stars with a contemplative gaze. The fight had been long and fraught with peril, but for the first time, victory seemed within grasp. The Coalition had grown, now a formidable alliance of diverse species and systems, each united under a single cause: freedom from Custodian domination. As Marisol reviewed reports and dispatches from various fronts, she realized how complex governing this alliance would be once the war was over. The galaxy was changing, and they were at the forefront of that change. A conference was called on the neutral planet of Veridia, the very world where Marisol had been captured. Now, it served as a symbol of unity and resilience. Leaders from across the alliance gathered to discuss the post-war reconstruction and the political landscape that would follow the Custodians' defeat. Marisol, as a key leader of the resistance, addressed the assembly. "We stand at the brink of a new era. Our actions today will shape the future of our galaxy. We must be wise and just, not just strong," she stated, her voice echoing in the grand hall. During the conference, critical issues were debated: the reintegration of Custodian-controlled systems, handling of war criminals, distribution of technology and resources, and the establishment of a galactic council to ensure peace and cooperation among the once warring factions. Amid these discussions, news arrived that the dissenting Custodians, led by Virax, had successfully overthrown their militaristic leaders, capturing key facilities and gaining control over the Custodian fleet. The Coalition had to decide how to integrate them into the new galactic order they were building. Marisol met with Virax to negotiate terms. "Your help has been invaluable, and your people's willingness to change a testament to the possibility of peace," she acknowledged. Virax, in return, expressed a desire for his people to atone for their past. "We seek to contribute to the galaxy, not as overseers but as equals," he proposed. With agreements slowly forming, Marisol also took time to visit the planets and people who had suffered the most during the war. She saw the devastation, but also the unbreakable spirit of the citizens, their gratitude towards the Coalition, and their hopeful eyes towards the future. As the foundational treaty of the Galactic Council was drafted, Marisol felt a mix of relief and responsibility. The galaxy was watching, and the weight of history was upon them all. Each decision, each compromise was a step towards a hopeful yet uncertain future. Finally, the treaty was signed in a historic ceremony, broadcasted across the galaxy. Planets cheered, ships honked their horns in spaceports, and people of all species celebrated in streets, homes, and halls. Marisol stood beside leaders of various races as they declared the dawn of a new era. The newly established Galactic Council would oversee the rebuilding of affected worlds, the integration of Custodian technology for peaceful use, and the maintenance of security and justice throughout the galaxy. As the celebrations continued, Marisol took a moment for herself, stepping away from the crowds. She looked up at the stars, thinking about the long journey from her capture on Veridia to this moment. The galaxy was still vast and mysterious, filled with challenges and adventures yet to come. But for now there was peace. She smiled, a sense of satisfaction mingling with anticipation for the future. The war was over, but the work of building a galaxy where all could thrive was just beginning. Marisol was ready for whatever came next, armed with experience, surrounded by allies, and driven by a vision of peace and unity. The new dawn was here, and it was bright with promise.